Our daily Bible reading for February 9th. Our reading today comes from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 23. We'll begin reading in verse 1 through verse 26. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The scribes and Pharisees sit on Moses' seat, so do and observe whatever they tell you, but not the works they do. For they preach, but do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to move them with their finger. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad and their fringes long, and they love the place of honor at feasts and the best seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the marketplaces, and being called rabbi by others. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you are all brothers. And call no man your father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. Neither be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Christ. The greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you neither enter yourselves, nor allow those who would enter to go in. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense you make long prayers. Therefore you will receive the greater condemnation. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you travel across sea and land to make a single proselyte. And when he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourselves. Woe to you, blind guides, who say, if anyone swears by the temple, it is nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by his oath. You blind fools, for which is greater, the gold or the temple that has made the gold sacred? And you say, if anyone swears by the altar, it is nothing. But if anyone swears by the gift that is on the altar, he is bound by that oath. You blind men, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? So whoever swears by the altar swears by it, and by everything on it. And whoever swears by the temple swears by it, and by him who dwells in it. And whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God, and by him who sits upon it. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. These you ought to have done without neglecting the others. You blind guides, straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you clean the outside of the cup and plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup and the plate, that the outside also may be clean. Thoughts for today. What's in a name? Turns out plenty, according to Jesus. Even the simplest of polite manners can have implications if taken too seriously. When a title goes to someone's head, the results can be disastrous at best, and often the undoing of the individual. Jesus warns his disciples, and the crowd who listened was one that should not be taken lightly. His explanation of this all too often malady was used with the backdrop of the scribes and Pharisees of the day. The leaders of the Jews had let power go to their heads. For he tells us, and they loved the place of honor at banquets, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and the respectful greetings in the marketplaces, and being called by men rabbi. Verses 6 and 7. They saw their place in the kingdom as that of authority with power, rather than the true example of the servant. It is not hard to see the progression of events when an act is done in innocence that seems harmless at the time. With time comes the concept of tradition, and tradition turns into authority, and authority turns into doctrine, and the end is in sight. Once that trend becomes accepted, a slippery slope of linked events is inevitable. As in many admonitions, Jesus provides ample proof and reasons why the practice of rank is not to be used in his kingdom. Whether it's rabbi, father, master, or teacher, these terms are not to be used for three reasons. First, Christ is over all and is our teacher, and being called rabbi would usurp that authority. We are brothers, and as such, equals. Second, God alone is our Father. No man can be our Father. Third, Jesus is our leader and teacher. Though names and titles such as father, rabbi, reverend, pastor have become commonplace in our society, and the justification seems sound, we must go back to the Bible for our authority. Even the use of robes, collars, hats, and the like become stumbling blocks because they set up a hierarchy that Jesus himself strictly forbids. Remember, equality and a servant's heart are to be desired over that of earthly titles. A question of the day. Do you feel as though you are higher or lower than others in the congregation? And a thought to meditate on this day. Think today on the people you know of to be servants in the kingdom, and what sets them apart. And those are our thoughts for today, February the 9th.